shoot. No! No, I'm the murder doer, exactly. Oh no! Oh fuck! Oh my god!
Jesus Christ.
Shit!
Red slimes.
Hello, Willie. Oh, I have to meet a nice Willie in the pub. You want information on Gorodisha? Do I? Cheers. Eh. Not up. There was like a sudden kick. It was like it kicked me in the tonsils. Is there something wrong with that hole? Die! Die! God damn it!
There's nothing wrong with this Hulk, Jamie. There's nothing wrong with this Hulk at all.
End the night with the overriding taste of me in your mouth. Hello, everybody. I completely missed the end of the countdown there. I was just messaging back Laura because I said awful things about her before the cameras were rolling.
You should say them while the cameras are rolling as well.
Yeah, she's a bloody lovely woman.
Oh, just really grinds my gears how likable she is.
How bad she makes me look in comparison to her excellent wonderfulness. Thank you for subscribing, Kote.
Oh, wait,
very
wait.
much.
Oh, I know why I can't. I suddenly can't hear you. Okay, I can hear you.
Can't
again.
What happened?
I opened your stream so that I can. I basically just wanted to see if I was still subscribed. I am. 1 day remaining.
Tomorrow's going to be a good one, eh?
But then in opening the tab, it defaulted back to the muted tab state that I usually have Twitch on.
Oh, well, that's a shame.
It's a bit,
Chat, can you hear us both? Are we both audible? Hello.
I'm a Bobby boy.
I'm so tired today.
Oh,
we did a big walk. We walked down part of the Thames Path on the weekend. Hello, people I can hear fine and others. Excellent. Thank you. Well, hello, Steltek and Koto and Nomta. Welcome. And his cursedness. Welcome, all of you.
oh, nice.
It's good to see you all. Should we just get to it?
So not used to that kind of promptness and
I know.
and ready to, but we should do the countdown.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
I moved the card. There we go. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Right. So it's gonna be 3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but not that fast.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you very much.
There we go. Well, if you have anything else you want to say before we get going, we can do it.
Anything that I want to say?
Yeah.
What? Your Thames Walk path, that thing. How long was that? Did you see
4 hours?
For what?
Yeah, and
I don't think it's possible for the human body to walk for 4 hours. I'm sorry, I simply don't think it can be done.
So Laura did a walk along part of the Thames Path the prior week, and she said it was lovely, walking down the river, nice river views and everything. It's great. I was like, oh well, I've got time this weekend. I'll come along with you this weekend. So I went this weekend, and the part that we walked down was like mostly taken up by building sites, and or like private buildings that had bought part of the, owned part of the riverside, so you couldn't actually get to the riverside. Yeah.
So it just became a walk with a river vaguely somewhere nearby.
A walk down various high streets. Yeah.
Yeah, like there is a river over there. But
you can hear it. Yeah.
But we're not adjacent to it.
No. We're
sort of
in the vicinity.
That sounds disgustingly wholesome and sort of nice for you.
Did you have a nice weekend, Jonas?
Did I? Oh, I was meant to play 2 different D&D sessions, and then it turned into 0 D&D sessions.
Oh. Well, I had a D&D session on the weekend, so maybe I stole one of them.
Maybe you stole my D&D
Maybe I
session, you
stole your
monster.
D&Ds. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize you were playing
Probably did.
D&D these days.
It was our first session. So I
Wow.
wasn't. Apparently you
Wow.
helped your mum this weekend, Jonas.
Yeah, I drove and picked her up from a park and ride outside Oxford and took her home because she came back from South Africa.
Ah, nice. Well,
Yes.
welcome back. Welcome back, Nocta. Um, I don't have a. Oh, this is irrelevant. But I need to ask you something about a person we know that I'm not going to mention on stream, and I meant to ask you before the stream but forgot. It's not salacious or anything like that. It's just probably not a conversation we should have in public. But remind me in the break, basically, because I'm remembering it now.
Um, I'm going to be lamenting on this all the time. I'm going to be reviewing a game and be like, "Who is he talking? Who does he want to talk about? Who does he want
um,
to talk about? What
well,
does he want to say?"
you, you're gonna be. It's not gonna be it's not gonna be that exciting when you hear
Okay,
it.
that's fine. That's fine. Oh man,
um,
when we come back from the break, I'm gonna
be devastated.
yeah,
White as a
I'm gonna
sheet.
throw a tantrum. I'm gonna spend the rest of the podcast muttering on my under my breath
I
to
said I'd
Tom.
never speak their name again.
We signed a contract.
I don't have a TT for you. I
What?
haven't thought about it.
Well, we can't start until you have a TT.
For some reason, I've decided I'm just going to scroll through a list of Stardew Valley mods, and maybe that'll inspire me.
And maybe there'll be a word in there.
Yeah. Okay, I got one. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've
ready?
been playing too much Hitman, Koto.
Oh, we haven't, but we've been playing a lot of Hitman.
You can randomly throw names in the mix, Nomta. You do know the person we're talking about, so. TT by Korean girl group twice. That's that. I'm not sure we'd be able to riff on that one.
I know so much about the Korean girl group twice. I wouldn't struggle. That's all I can say.
All right. Well, here we go then. You ready?
Always.
Hello and welcome to this month's episode of the Bunyip Review podcast. I'm your co-host, James the Bunyip Man Willis, and I am here with my co-host, Jonas, TT by Korean girl group twice, Garway. How you doing, Jonas?
Yeah, I'm great. I know nothing about that band, know nothing about that song. This is a weird reference, and we both know it. So I think
Yeah, that's fair enough. But we'll just
I
move
think
on
rather
then.
than me doing a vaguely racist Korean girl group impression, I think we'll just move on
Yeah,
and
I think we
maintain
should
our
move on.
dignity.
I think we
Yeah.
should move on. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast. It's February. We're finally sort of like settled into the year, but I've realised that there may be new people who are coming in who don't know what we do. So for once in our damn lives, I'm gonna reintroduce the podcast. This is the Bunyip Review. It's a media review show. We talk about TV shows, we talk about games, we talk about movies once a month. Most of the time recommendations, but sometimes more like warnings, I guess. And then at the end of every podcast, we are given a random Netflix movie that we need to watch. And we watch it. We've seen all sorts of awful rubbish, from strange Bollywood movies to really dreadful American stand-ups, and everything in between.
The full spectrum.
The full spectrum, yeah. I don't know if we've seen the full spectrum movies have to offer yet, but it definitely feels like we're getting there
It's an
somehow.
eventuality.
So this month, I'm going to be talking about that 90s show. I'm going to be talking about playing Spider-Man Remastered, and I've been watching 3 Billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Jonas, what are you talking about this month?
Yeah, TV show I'm going to talk about is there's a show on Netflix called Dragon Age Absolution. I've been playing a game called Hi-Fi Rush, and I'm keen to review that and talk about that later today. And the film I went to go see recently, I'm going to talk about is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Exciting. I should be seeing that soon as well, so I'm interested to hear about it.
Mm.
But I guess before that, we'll do our rewind section, which is where we talk about something that we reviewed in the past, but that we've got new information about or just new experiences with. And in particular, this month, it's well, it's been on everyone's lips. It's Hitman turning into World of Assassination, combining the three games maps into one just solid game, and the introduction of the new mode, Freelancer mode, which is incredible. It's basically a brand new roguelike experience in Hitman where you build up a safe house full of guns and then you go out and you kill randomly selected targets. Jonas and I have been playing a shitload of it recently and have built up a lot more knowledge. I did talk about it when I'd played a bit of the beta a while back. So I think I've talked about it the most. Jonas, why don't you start us off with how you feel about it, how you've tried it?
So, I've played Hitman. I've played the latest Hitman trilogy as just sort of, whatever, Hitman 1, 2, and 3. And I play them to completion. And when I say completion, what I mean is I do every mission, and every mission has like a mandatory target for the story. And I kill that target, and I move on, and then I do all the levels, and then I'm very unlikely to pick up the game for many more hours beyond that, because I did the level, I did the assassination. I find that I don't get drawn into the challenges. Sometimes I like to find out what some of the little side stories are in each of the maps, but that's kind of as far as I go with it. And that's especially true for Hitman 3. I played through the game once, got to the end, and then I really didn't boot it up much beyond that. Now that Hitman World of Assassination is out, and more importantly, now that they've fully released freelancer mode, I have not been able to put this game down for like the last 2 weeks that it's been out, outside of just playing anything else, to review on the podcast and things. I fucking love it. The way that it like procedurally generates targets, hindrances, items, uh, optional objectives, the way that it kind of lets you pick a map and see in advance what those objectives are going to be, the way you can decide to spend, you can decide like, what am I going to spend my money on? Am I going to spend my money on a gun, which is going to let me obviously pop my target from a distance? Or am I going to spend my money on like a crowbar that I know is going to let me get into locked doors with less hassle, and a syringe of poison so that I can walk straight up to the target and just jab them and walk away? And then if you manage to take those items with you out of the map, they get added to that safe house collection. And the real clever little thing that the game does is the game, in roguelike games, right? If you play the game over and over and over again, some games offer like a progression system so that, playing the game from hour 1 is very different to playing the game in hour 50. And some games like, closer to Binding of Isaac or Spelunky are just the same game from start to start to finish, and the only thing that changes is your knowledge of those games, right? Hitman's incredible because not only are you spending this currency to get better items that you might be able to take with you, but the progression system is how much of your own safe house are you allowed to walk around
Mm.
in, and how personalized is your safe house when you walk around it. So in the early days, you can only walk around the basement. Every part of every room you go into is filled with packing boxes and like furniture that's still covered up in like dust protectors. And then slowly over the game, you do like 6 murders, and your handler Diana is like, 47, I've now given you access to the bathroom, and you're now allowed to walk into a bathroom. It doesn't do anything, but at least you can do it. It's nice to treat 47 to the experience of a bathroom, and slowly a kitchen, and then a bedroom, and then the garden, and eventually he's allowed to walk into his own goddamn shed. And I love what like a lovely little cosmetic trick that is to a game that generally the cosmetics are normally limited to what is 47 wearing before he knocks someone out and wears their clothes, and how cool does the gun you're probably not allowed to pull out in public look?
I
And
think
I like that.
I think what it does so well is having multiple progression systems in tandem that all have their own sort of unique quirks and interesting things. Like there is that core safe house thing, and every time you get something new in the safe house, it's a little bit more than what you expect. Like you unlock the, you know, for example, you unlock the vault room, and it has this weird little stock trading thing in it that
Mm,
affects thing. Or you unlock the garage, and it has a car battery you could take into a level in it, right? Everything, or like you can when you unlock the outside, you can fish up a fish and cut it open to get some sleeping poison or something.
sedative.
Sedative, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. But so like everything has like like that is like the core progression thing. That's the core reward system, but it's always a little bit more than you expect, which makes it always feel like a little added bonus. Or you usually get two or three things, like you get a new gun and a new painting and a new, like, you know, flooring or something, and it just feels like you're getting lots of things. And when you look at, there's like 100 levels in this system, you're like, there's gonna be stuff there forever. But then there's also the actual campaign system itself, where you're trying to get to the end of a full like 18 mission campaign kind of thing. And when you fail, going back to the beginning of that feels like you're getting a little bit further every time, or like if you do fuck up, it's your own fault and you're like trying to get further. That feels like the sort of difficulty progression that you can see yourself pushing further when you're getting better at it. And then there's the gun walls, which I think, you know, in the base game, I loved collecting the weapons that you could unlock. I loved doing all the challenges to unlock the weapons, because to me it felt like that was like a sort of sign of how much I'd learned about the game. But I never used any of them. I never used any, like all the 300 pistols you unlock and all 300 shotguns, because why would you ever do that? Like, if you need a
Mm,
shotgun in a level, you can find a shotgun in a level. You don't need to do that. But what Freelancer does is it says, A, you don't have much gear to begin with. If you need a sniper rifle, that's a rare item, really. You're going to have to really work to get that. So when you get it up on the wall, you have the choice of being like, I'm a collector, I'm working on progression to build up things on the wall, but also I need that item in
yeah.
the map. You start using things you wouldn't normally use. Like you start, like I was using the shuriken for some reason because I needed it for certain things, or like, you know, I'm taking like, you know, I used the ducky silenced pistol for various things because it was the only silenced pistol I had at the time, or things like that. You start to like, you have this third progression system. You have the difficulty one, you have the main core, like just solid one, and then you have this sort of flexible one where you have to
Yeah.
make choices every time you take something off that wall. Like if you earn, like if you unlocked like Xbox Live achievements, but then they said you can get further in the game if you take that Xbox Live achievement with you, and if you dropped it somewhere in the level you'd lose it. You were like, oh shit. Like, it's really clever at motivating you from every angle,
Yeah.
and then just being the perfect distilled version of these core mechanics that they've created.
And it's you know, something about like, so you want to collect the cool weapons, right? Like you want a better weapon. You either want the better weapon because you've got the collector's drive inside you, or you want the better weapon because it will mechanically make you a better assassin to have a silenced gun at your beck and call at all times. Or you want to buy the weapon because the game is incentivizing you to use a specific weapon to fulfill a certain objective. But to get the money to get that particular item, you have to do the optional objectives. The optional objectives pay you double, triple, sometimes, you know, several times more than just the core mission statement of kill these people and leave the mission. So suddenly, not only are you trying to kill these people, but you're also like trying to go around the level and shoot out cameras. And you're trying, you know, you've got like a mission that says that one of your targets must be killed by an explosion with at least one collateral you know, with one
Mm.
innocent killed in the same explosion. So you can isolate your target, but that won't pay you 5,000, you know, murder macaroons. So now you're knocking out that person, dragging them to an undisclosed location, finding a random individual, sorry, innocent person, knock them out, hope you don't get caught, drag their body over to an undisclosed location, blow them both up, tripling the risk of you failing this mission as you do so. And if you fail the mission, what we haven't mentioned is that you lose any item that you took with you. So that lovely collectible rare silenced ducky pistol that you're taking with you, you failed, you lost it. And and it adds this element of like, oh, I should take this gun with me because it's better. But if I fail, I'll lose it. So maybe I should just leave it in the safe house. And
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't do those optional objectives. But if I don't do the optional objectives, I don't get the money
I
to
think
reward myself.
it creates interesting choices that, like, the base game, again, I love the base game. I've before the Freelancer came out, I was going through, I was just completing all the challenges. But the base game has this thing of, you can find an FAQ that will tell you the right choices to make for everything you do. So it's about executing, but it's not necessarily about thinking. You're not making a lot of choices if you're challenge hunting, right? You will early on when you first get to grips with the level and you decide to go off piste or whatever. But eventually that game boils down to, you're going to complete challenges. You're going to kill this person with this chandelier, right? If you're going to have to kill them with that specific chandelier, there's only so many choices you can make. Now, I think what Freelancer does so well is it makes you make really complicated choices regularly that no one else is going to be making, that you can't Google, that you can't find help for. Like, you have a choice. Do you take the legendary gun off your wall and make this mission easier? But if you leave the legendary rifle in the map, you've lost it. Do
Mhm.
you, like, I had multiple times where I would go into a map, I would take a knife with me, things would go wrong, and this is the other aspect, is you can't save and go back to a save during this. It has that thing that everyone wanted from elusive targets, which is the risk and the punishment if you fail, but not a, like, meta punishment of being locked out. You just lose your progress and you go back again, and it's a more satisfying thing, because you feel like you can keep playing and you can keep going, but you still also feel like you're punished for losing.
Yeah.
There's a big punishment for losing things. I had levels where I'd take a knife, I'd go in, things would go wrong, I'd have to do something, I'd have to kill people, because you can't save and quit. You can't do a fresh run and do it perfectly. You just got to deal with the situation. And then I leave the map and I go, oh fuck, I threw the knife at someone.
Yeah.
I don't have it
Now I've lost
anymore.
that. I've lost my epic,
It's
you
gone.
know,
It served its purpose of getting me out of that situation, but I don't have it anymore. I can't continue my big knife wall collection. I'm gonna have to find it again.
and I think the fact that the game decided to incorporate, because this is such a weird Hitman thing for them to do, right? They gave a rarity system to the weapons, which you get rarity systems in RPG games. You don't get
Mm.
them in assassination simulators. But I know that this silenced pistol I'm taking with me, this black AC-17 roll baller silence or whatever. Yeah, that's a gun, sure. I know it's epic. It says it in a purple name, epic. Sometimes I get more points if I kill an enemy with a epic weapon. And so my attachment to this weapon is higher than the common, also silenced, maybe not as good aim, but still a pretty good gun, like weapon.
I
But
think I think that
yeah.
there's an element to this, which is that, I've talked in the past about how weird WoW feels when you roll a high level character now, where everyone in the game turns to you and says, "Oh, you're like you're a legendary hero. You've been here and you've been there." It's like, this character was born literally today, kind of thing. And there's a lot of talk in those kind of RPG games of legendary weapons like Ashbringer and all these kind of things. But really, everyone has them. They're kind of just, like, you're never going to lose it. It's just this sort of, like, effectively an achievement in item form. And I think that Hitman really makes these weapons feel legendary, because the legendary snipers, for example, are so much better than all the other snipers, that they are genuinely, they will make everything easier for you. but you feel like you're like pulling a relic off the wall
Yeah,
when you're doing it. You
yeah,
feel like you're taking an artifact out of a
fragile.
museum. You're like, I can only use this if I really need to use it.
Yep. And
Because
and
yeah, it
and
is this
yeah,
legendary weapon. Yeah.
and it feels like you're picking up something that's really made of fragile glass, right?
Mm.
I have to treat this carefully. I have to know where this is all the time. I can't let anyone see me with this. Like if it was any other gun, I'd just shoot them in the head and walk away. But I can't risk the mistake of starting a fight that I don't know I can win with
It
this in my,
the, the,
you
the,
know,
the, the taking legendary sniper rifles or legendary assault rifles or things that need to go in briefcase into the map created this phenomenon in me that whenever I did sniper missions in the base game, I would shoot the person, drop the sniper on the ground, and walk away because
yeah,
that's the easiest way to do the things, right? In this game, not only would I always keep the briefcase with me, no matter where I went, whether I was using it or not, I would always keep the briefcase. But part of me was like, when I first started doing it, I was like, I'll find a safe place to put the briefcase and then
yeah,
I'll go off and do the thing. And then I'd put it down, I'd walk around the corner and I'd go, "Oh, I'm going to forget it's there.
yeah.
I'm going to have to go
But
back and get the briefcase."
I started coming up with contingency plans of like, right, I'm going to shoot the person, then I'm going to run into the bathroom, and I'm going to hide behind the bathtub, and I'm going to put the weapon back in the briefcase,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to pick up the briefcase, and yeah, I can't leave the weapon behind because I care about the weapon too much.
But
Um,
that is how a game that's simulating assassination should feel. You shouldn't be taking a 30 million pound sniper rifle into a building and just drop it on the floor when you've shot someone. You should be taking it home, right? You should be like I think that the base game has a very distinct feel, right? That you are puzzle solving. It is a puzzle game, and you are like working out these things. Oh, you still there, Jonas?
I am still there. You did freeze for a moment, but please
Yeah,
carry on.
you had a little like exclamation mark on my thing.
It happened
Um,
for you as well, but carry on.
yeah. So you are like the base game was a puzzle game. You're solving puzzles through murder. You're given a goal and you have to work out the intricate ways that comes together. But this is a assassination simulator.
Mm.
You have to go through those thought processes. You have to react and adapt and make choices. And I think that it's rare that an update comes to a game that makes it still feel like the same game and also feel like an entirely different game without making you pay for anything.
And also just as an added point, the base game, right? It's the puzzles where the solution is always going to be that person. Like your
Mm.
target in the base game is always going to be Stevie McSteverson, the person who the devs have decided is the target, and the developers have decided that the target does these following behaviors and has this following schedule and has these very exploitative weaknesses. But sure, you can improvise around that a bit. Whereas freelancer mode is literally sometimes it's either picking NPCs in the level who are nobodies, absolute fucking nobodies, and it's just like, so remember that? Do you remember that level where you go to that hotel? Yeah, we're just gonna make the front receptionist your target. Have fun.
But the
Um,
funny thing is like I don't think you necessarily need to have played much of the base game to go into freelancer, but it definitely helps. And the more you have, the you know the more you can do in that mode. And definitely there's things where it will give you a target, and if you've played that level loads of times, you will know that target because you will
mm,
have bumped into them loads of times or taken their costumes or whatever. On Sapienza, for example, one of the potential freelance targets, because it's not an infinite pool, it can't be anyone on the level. I've noticed that
sure.
I've done levels where I've got the same people multiple times.
Okay.
But one of the targets on Sapienza, for example, is the priest in the church, right? And in when you play the normal game, there's multiple different things you can do with that church, and the priest is like this enforcer that's constantly just getting in your way. So when he becomes the target, if you've played a lot of that level, you probably know where he goes, right? You've
Yeah.
probably thought about a place where you could off him anyway. And so when you see that, you're like, here we go, I got
Ah.
this. Yeah.
But now this time, can you also please kill him with an axe?
Yeah, can you kill him
You
with
know,
an axe and 6 guards with a shotgun for some
yeah,
reason? Yeah.
exactly. It's good. I'm having loads of fun. It sounds like you're having loads of fun. We both did those 18 missions now. We have both completed a campaign,
Yeah.
which, for to compare it to Hades, right? Hades, when you play Hades, you keep dying and then eventually you beat the final boss. And you can put the game down there, but there is a lot more games still to be had, just even though you beat the boss. The game's not over, and it knows that. And so I haven't gone back to Hitman yet, and I'm gonna try and something I'm having to kind of ask myself now is I did it. I did a campaign. So what's my objective now?
I'm
What
gonna
like I
fill them
really
weapon walls. I'm
you
gonna
want to
fill
fill
them
them
weapon
weapon
walls.
walls. Yeah, and I think maybe I just wanna fill up the mastery track and make my safe house perfect.
Filling up the weapon walls is a fun one. And because there's a funny thing with it, which is you can only carry 2 large weapons out of a map, right?
Yeah.
So you sort of have this feeling of going to the shops and being like, well, I've got to walk, I've got to carry these bags home, so I can't buy too much at the shops. I'll buy a couple of explosive ducks, a shotgun, and a sniper rifle, but I can't take the assault rifle. I can't fit it. I'll have
Yeah.
to come back for that. All right.
I like that. Oh yeah, I was gonna tell you a story, but it's not an important story. We'll talk about it off stream. Let's move on.
Yeah. Otherwise, this will just be Hitmen
This is the whole podcast.
forever and ever. I mean, it could be. I'd be really happy to just talk about Hitmen. We are the
Hit
Hitmen, but we'll talk about Hitman for the next 2 hours. But
rebranding the Bunyip review into just the Hitman review.
the Hitman review, I would happily do that. We'll come on every month. We could make it a weekly podcast if all we talk about is Hitman. I could absolutely do that. Just talk about our favorite hits. All the best routes we did.
I think you could like do a dramatic retelling of your own missions, and it
Mm,
would be quite compelling.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
from different perspectives as well, like the NPC perspective of the person that caught you, like crouched down over a vomiting body in the bathroom.
But then maybe it'll just be like other people telling you their D&D stories, and you're like, yeah, great. I'm sure that was really good.
Well, some people do that and delight in it,
That's true. That's true. Yeah, maybe. All right. Well,
but we delight in reviews.
let's talk about let's make use of the reviews we actually wrote. Shall we?
All right.
All right. So first up, we got TV, and this month I have been watching. I've watched the first 2 episodes of a show that many people are saying is probably going to be one of the best shows that came out this year, and probably the best video game TV show to come out for a long time. And that's not what I'm reviewing. Um,
Okay, I
so,
was like so confused there 'cause I was like,
um,
wait a second.
so instead of talking about that incredible show, which I have watched a bit of, instead I'm going to be talking about another incredible show. I don't think I can say that with a straight face. I'm going to be talking about that 90s show. It's the Netflix sort of reboot sequel. I guess it is a sequel to that 70s show, which was a sitcom nostalgically about the 70s, which basically launched a lot of careers, including Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. And this is set 20 years on, hence why it's now the 90s show instead of the 70s show. And Eric and Donna, the main romantic couple of the original show, have had a daughter called Leia, who they bring to visit their grandparents. The show starts in the set of the original series, Red and Kitty's house, who are Eric's grandparents. And the set has been lovingly restored to look exactly the same as you remember it. I assume it's been restored. I don't imagine they kept the set in a warehouse somewhere for the whole time. So Leia ends up meeting a local punk girl who opens her eyes to having exciting friends, and Leia asks to stay in Point Place for the summer with her grandparents. And this sort of establishes pretty much exactly the same cast as the original 70s show, but with new kids, and with Red and Kitty playing the same characters they played before. Um, that 90s show does a lot of things wrong, I would say. Its format feels incredibly dated, not just because of its theming, but mainly because of its approach to TV comedy. It's recorded in front of a live studio audience, which is a format which feels like it's fully fallen out of favour in recent years. And because of this, the pacing can feel really off a lot of the time. half of the cast is teenagers, which is commendable when they could have gone with older actors playing down, a phenomenon which they actively make fun of during the show. But all of the teen actors are shaky at best. They haven't got that timing that makes comedy in front of an audience work individually, and when they're in group scenes, as they often are, that can compound into a pretty stilted walk through a sometimes mediocre at best script. That's disappointing, especially when it's aiming to be a sequel to a show that genuinely did have some pretty excellent young comedic actors in it. But they definitely do have their moments. Ozzy, the catty gay boy, has a fair few decent one liners and a really heartfelt plotline about finding a safe adult to come out to. Nate has glimmers of truly embodying his sort of dumb jock character, and when he does, he is genuinely hilarious. But I think the selling point of that 90s show isn't really the teens, despite them being about half of the content and the majority of the new cast. 90s show bills itself on a nostalgia trip for those who grew up in the 90s, but really the time frame doesn't feel that distinct in it, certainly not as distinct as the 70s did in the 70s show. Really, it's a nostalgia trip for those who liked that 70s show, and in that sense, it very much succeeds. Old cast members pop in for one off episodes, giving a pleasing glimpse at how their lives have changed in the past 20 years, and its core is two reoccurring cast members, Red and Kitty. Now, grandparents, Red and Kitty are the continuity aspect of the show, helping to contrast how things have changed and sometimes haven't changed between the generations. They also have to fit into their new roles and adapt to getting older, and they do it so well. Deborah Jo Rupp, in particular, is a comedic force as Kitty. She has impeccable timing and genuinely makes the show worth watching on its own. I think the show is in a strange place at the moment. Where it works, it's excellent. As a progression of these characters and as a comedic exploration of generations of a family. Where it doesn't, it feels ropey and stilted, but I don't think it's lacking heart. It's let down by its new cast, but there is still time to fix that in the future seasons, I hope. Um, Jonas, have you watched either this or 70s show?
I have watched neither. I feel like I've kind of spent a lot of my life growing up with people like subtly. I mean, every now and then someone will just be like that '70s show,
Mm.
and I don't think I ever actually appreciated that that '70s show is the name of a TV show that was made in the late '90s and early 2000s that people were actually watching. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd
Yeah.
never actually cottoned on that that might be a show that I should sit down and watch. So I've never watched it. I've never seen a clip from it. I barely know Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis really. Like, I know their names, but I don't know anything about who they really are as actors. And so when I think I've heard this show referred to like once or twice in different tweets, or maybe I've seen it on the front page of Netflix. And I've kind of just completely disregarded it. I've not given it any attention, and I've certainly not considered that it might be a show that I could or should watch. What drew you to that? So do you have nostalgia for the '70s show? Do you
Yeah, so
what's
so
the
I
relationship?
so I watched it. It was one of those shows I basically just binged on Netflix in the background of doing things. The original 70s show. And the 70s show, it's nothing super special. I think there's a reason why it's not like, nostalgic for for us to go back and watch. We were a bit young for it when it came out, and I think that it's obviously harkening back to a nostalgia of a time that we didn't live through. But it had a sort of distinctive flavor to it. It was youth comedy, but it was sort of nostalgic jokes, and it was definitely through the lens of exemplifying the sort of funny aspects of that time period. Right, there was a lot of like pot smoking hippies and cool music and all that kind of stuff. It was fairly straight down the line, but it was you know well performed. Deborah Jo Rupp in particular, who played Kitty, was just as good back then as she is now. And it just had this sort of like warmth and heart to it, which made it a pretty reasonable sitcom about youth kind of thing. I think that what drew me to this is that because I had that sort of positive association with the 70s show, and because I'd watched it, one of the nice things about the sort of binge watching in the modern day is that you can get the whole story, right? So I followed these characters from the beginning where Eric first meets Donna all the way up to the end where they're together forever or whatever. That it's kind of nice having a show that goes, okay, 20 years later, how are they doing? They got kids, what they're doing, what are Red and Kitty like as grandparents, Occasionally they bring in other characters that appeared a couple of times in the 70s show or were like major characters in the 70s show. They turn up for one episode and you're like, oh, yeah, that's nice. Um, but what I think is weird about this one is that it doesn't have that distinctive feeling of the time frame anymore. Like that, I don't know what you would do to make it all like really heavily 90s jokes, but it just isn't. It could be
Right.
now, really.
Yeah,
And
I mean, so just from some of the marketing I've seen, times change, teenagers don't. So
mm,
and seeing the grandparents at the front of the art on the page with the teenagers at the back. Yeah, there's a lot there that kind of says to me, right, it sounds to me like they're going to try and play the teenagers to be near mirrors of their 70s versions. Teenagers don't change. um but the grandparents are the things that kind of link, like they're almost the stable main characters, the pillars of this show.
but that's it, right? Is that poster almost sums up what they've done with this show. And I don't know if they wanted it to be this way, but it definitely is this way, which is those new kids are kind of background characters despite being the main characters.
Hmm.
And the grandparents are the continuity of the story, and it's really interesting seeing how they've grown as people and they're better actors as well, and how they interact, that how they have to deal with no longer being the direct parents of these kids and having to work out how those boundaries work. That's way more interesting and way more fun to watch. So that poster brings them to the forwards. Like,
Yeah, and I guess something about that indicates that they want to market this show to people who are going to relate to the grandparents more than the teenagers, right? They're not marketing this to teenagers and being like, "Here's a show for you teenagers. It features teenagers." It's like, no, here's a show for people who are probably like have to deal with people younger than
mm,
them and are settled as a couple in a house where they actually kind of like have very relatable couple moments.
yeah, yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
it's for people who like the '70s show or were around in the
I
'90s.
guess that's it. Yeah, isn't it? It doesn't look like it's trying to get a new audience. And it looks like someone said, "Hey, the actors are available. Why don't we give this a go and see how it shoots off?" And it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. They've been given a second season, and I think what I would like to see in the second season is I'd like to see it get a bit more of its own identity. I'd like to see that the you can't make this happen, but I'd like to see the teenage actors get a bit more comfortable with it.
Mm,
It definitely felt like as the show goes on, they get a bit better, and I imagine that's because they shot them in order.
yeah.
And
You think they're just settling into their characters and their routines,
and
and
just like
they're
no one
learning their
does,
audience.
yeah, no one does stand up like sitcoms in front of an audience anymore. No one does. So like that's you know this is a new art kind of. I imagine like there's not that many producers around that know how to handle that, like kids doing this especially. I was genuinely impressed that the kid who plays the 16-year-old lead is 16. I was like, yeah, they've done it right. They feel like teenagers. They feel like this, but they need to feel like we're watching teenagers, not like we're watching teenagers play teenagers. And I hope
Yeah.
that they get to that point.
I think that point as well, that they are actually all the age that they play is nice and commendable, right? That's
Mm,
like these actors are getting a really incredible chance to try to shine, to
mm.
to to be themselves on camera at the age that they are,
Yeah.
to potentially set them up for a career in the future.
And that's what happened with the original 70s show, and I think that I don't want to say they're bad because they're young, and I think that it's an incredibly tough position to be in, and I think that there is enough good in the show to justify a second season. I'll watch it. Like I've been watching it on the trains going into work. I've been having a nice laugh. It's made the time go fast. That's exactly the point of this show. So I think there's enough good there that they can do a second season and they can give these kids some time to grow and time to get better at it. And in the meantime, you know, Kit and Red just putting on a comedy clinic. I'm happy with that. That's fine.
It's a duo stand up with some in between with some
Occasionally you have
filler.
to have a break while
Yeah,
some kids do some local community theatre, and then you go
yeah.
back to the
We go back to
adults.
the
Yeah.
stand up. That's good. That's good. Okay. I don't know that I have a lot more to ask you about this show. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you feel you really wanted to touch on before we move on, or should we just move on?
No, really, I think that like you know, there's the reason I didn't talk about Last of Us, and we will end up talking about it in the other section. But the reason I didn't talk about Last of Us is because I want to know that show better. I want to see more of it
It,
before I get there. And the reason
I
I talked about this is because I think that it's I wanted to talk about it because I think it's interesting, not
mm,
necessarily because I'd recommend it, right? I think there's sometimes it's nice to talk about things that there's just something different about it, or it starts a conversation. But I think that's basically it, right? We can't go into it any further than that.
no, and I think that's fair enough. With The Last of Us, I feel like that's a show that I wouldn't feel comfortable giving the review slot until it's finished. Because I feel
I
like
think we might be able to it won't be finished by next month, but I think we might be able to talk about it because there's a lot of interesting I think the impact of it is the first episode, right? And I
sure,
know
okay.
people are saying the third episode's amazing. I'll get to it, but I don't think they're going to do anything that you won't expect. We'll talk about Last of Us in a minute. That's not. This isn't a review of that, but,
Sure,
but yeah,
sure,
we'll talk
sure,
about that in
sure,
a bit. Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so Jamie, to summarize that 90s show, Jamie, you are a grandparent. You're old and wise,
Finally.
and interestingly, the last 20 years of your life are a blur. And I'm sure that you're able to reference them through little scripted comedy moments. But all of a sudden, you're a grandparent, and this granddaughter comes to visit. She's a teenager. Oh man, that's crazy, right? Like teenagers, you don't really get them. You used to deal with a teenager of your own, and now you're having to deal with this new generation of teenagers. And you say to your teenager, "What's up, dog? What's hippin' happening with the kids?" And this teenage this teenage grandchild looks at you and says, "Granddad, that's so uncool. You sound like a 70s child. Listen, no, if you want to sound like a 90s kid, you got to give me a one-line summary of that 90s show." And does a bunch of hip hand gestures as they say it.
Yeah.
And it dawns on you, she's right. That is how you become hip with the kids. A
Is it?
one-line summary of that 90s show. What do you say?
I say it's a sitcom out of time, but hopefully getting better.
Cool.
That's
Diggity
whack,
dog.
bro. All right.
And
That
then they smoke a spliff and walk off.
lovely. All right. Well, that was that '90s show. So we'll move on to Jonas's review of the month. Jonas, what are you reviewing this month?
This month, I am reviewing Dragon Age Absolution. Dragon Age Absolution is a 6-episode animated spin off series from the Dragon Age video games. It takes place after the events of Dragon Age Inquisition, which, if you didn't know, was the last and third Dragon Age game to come out. They are making a fourth game. Don't worry about that. This show is made by Red Dog Culture House, who previously made The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf, which I've reviewed on this podcast before. They made an animated series called Centaur visual world, which I know quite a few people enjoy. And interestingly, they made an Overwatch short, like a 2D animated Overwatch short, in case you need to go and look at that, Jamie. And this has been published as a sort of a Netflix original show. Dragon Age Absolution, it's basically a heist show, right? It's featuring characters and locations that are not heavily featured in the video games, which means it's kind of allowed to do its own thing without influencing sort of any of the video game events, but kind of more importantly, not requiring you to have knowledge of the video game and its events. The story follows Miriam, who is an elf mercenary and an escaped slave. She's hired by a group sort of ragtag bunch of adventurers to infiltrate her old enslaver's palace and steal a rare and powerful relic. I was genuinely surprised by just how much this show does really well given the franchise it's trying to adapt from. The Dragon Age video game series is generally loved and celebrated, but it's had like production issues and EA's influence especially like crippled Dragon Age 2 quite famously, to the point that, you know, people kind of the game wasn't people weren't sure if it was going to make a return. And even though Inquisition proved to be just an incredible sort of success, yeah, Dragon Age certainly has a bit of a sort of murky controversy, especially to that second game. And I think, you know, adapting an animated show from a franchise as you know, sort of divisive as that was probably going to make a show that could maybe only be loved by Dragon Age fans, right? But ultimately, I think Dragon Age Absolution is it's a show that can stand on its own 2 feet and succeed even in the eyes of a new audience. It's witty in the way that we kind of remember enjoying early Marvel wittiness, as opposed to slightly cringing at the more modern stuff. The heist crew are made up of characters that fulfill the sort of familiar class types and archetypes of the Dragon Age video games. You get like Lachlan the dwarf, you get Roland the human, and they both look and fight like the warrior class from Dragon Age. There are two mages that both use magic in a similar style to the mages from the video games. It's clear that there is a love and passion for the video games that's been brought into this show and precisely reflected in how these characters are designed and how they interact with each other. I think even more impressive is that the show includes 2 LGBTQ relationships, which I think is a sort of a love letter to the fact that Dragon Age lets you have queer relationships with your companions. And I think it's a rare thing for a show to do that with quite as much confidence as Dragon Age did. And I personally love to see it. I think more shows should just do it and not worry about justifying it. Visually, this is a show that, you know, it kind of reminded me of Castlevania. There are definitely similarities, right? Like both original Netflix animated shows adapting from game franchises. Dragon Age is brighter in its design and its aesthetic. The fight choreography is exceptionally well done as well, and it manages to truly leverage its own format to make the kind of fantasy spectacle fun and interesting to watch. The plot, it's solid enough. I think the diversity in the characters and personalities keeps you drawn into the events as they unfold. And I think the show is incredibly rewarding for fans of the universe, but could equally entice new viewers to give the games a try. Jamie, have you played a Dragon Age game? Because I don't think you've watched this, but I'm
I
wondering if
haven't
you've got
watched
any.
this. I played maybe like an hour of a Dragon Age game at some point a while back, and I don't know why I didn't continue it. I think I was like, oh, this is a long RPG. I'll play it when I have some time to play it, and then just didn't. But you know, it it it's an interesting review because you didn't make it sound glowing, and in a world where we have, like, for example, you know, The Last of Us and Cyberpunk Edge Runners, you know, these shows that are really sort of taking game franchises and absolutely running with it. Cyberpunk Edge Runners is probably a closer match to this in that it's set in the same game world but using different characters, right? They are both animated. Do you think that this feels a bit more like a video game tie-in to bring people to the show rather than its own thing, even though its story can stand alone? do you think people will come away from it feeling like they might have watched a bit of an ad?
It's hard to say. I think if I think about like Castlevania, right? Because that's the comparison I definitely want to make, because I want to make the Castlevania comparison. But Castlevania, I guess, adapts the game's events with a very kind of like loose freedom to how it directs and compares. But they are stylistically, and I think in terms of their production, very similar shows. Um, Castlevania doesn't really feel like an ad for the games. I didn't go play the games after Castlevania. I just loved the show. I just thought it was a genuinely great show. And it has upped Castlevania in my estimation. Like I have a more positive relationship with the brand Castlevania, the franchise, whatever, than I did before. And I think this made me love Dragon Age just that little bit more. I think it made me appreciate the world. I think it made me appreciate the um I don't know, the fantasy of it all, right? Like the races and the classes and the lore and the
Yeah,
magic and everything.
I guess maybe what I want to say is that, like, going back to, so I know you're not drawing the comparison to this, but Cyberpunk feels like it is, you know, almost creating the world it's in, right? Um it's so heavily a sort of visceral experience of this world, like independent of referencing its source material, right? Like it feels new and real and like tangible kind of thing. And I wonder if this Dragon Age animation, and maybe the Castlevania one as well, I haven't seen it, feel more like they are referencing rather than creating, right? Like they are, instead of you going in and being like, I'm feeling this really thorough, thorough world. Instead, it's, I'm seeing the world that was made in Dragon Age referenced in an animation. I don't know if do you
I
get
think I
that
think it
distinction?
is it definitely is more the latter, right?
Mm,
Um I think Cyberpunk was like a show that like took an environment that you can spend more time in the video game and gave you an incredible story in that environment. And I don't want to talk too much about Cyberpunk because we are going to talk about it
yeah,
at
I
our
mean, there's
award
a
show
reason why it's quite in my
in
mind at the
weeks.
moment.
Yeah, exactly. But so I don't want to say too much about what Cyberpunk is or isn't, but I've reviewed it before. Um, Cyberpunk brings an entire environment to life, and then you kind of realize, ooh, if I played the games, I'd spend more time in that environment. I think Dragon Age doesn't do that. Dragon Age takes place in a town that I don't think you get to go to in the video games. It involves no characters that you're going to meet or spend time with in the video games. And I think more importantly as well is that the video game strength is like the kind of RPG, making your decisions, getting to know your companions, fighting the forces of evil kind of fantasy. And this show just isn't that. Like, it doesn't
Mm,
even show you what your character would or could be, if that makes sense.
mm.
Um, so it's strange, yeah, because like there's nothing about this show that makes me think, wow, I should play Dragon Age so I can do that, or I can see that, or I can meet that person. It's
Yeah.
just a show in
I,
that world.
it's funny. I think, like, there's good and there's great adaptations, and I think that the things that make things great feel like there's a special sauce in there that makes it feel like it's not just you know harkening back to something you like, but it is something in its own right. And this doesn't sound bad, but yeah, it sounds like, it sounds like if you already have a predisposition to this kind of animation or a predisposition to Dragon Age, you might get along with it, but it probably isn't going to be the kind of thing that draws you in over some of its like heavily lauded counterparts.
Sure. I think this is the kind of things where it's like, if you were a fantasy fan, right? Like if you liked sort of, Lord of the Rings-esque magic and dragons and cool combat and, sort of like fantasy-esque crime and drama. Or if you were just into like maybe just you were just curious about like a animated heist show, like because that's what this is. This show is basically it's a heist over 6 episodes, right? They're trying to steal a cool thing. They have to go into a complex place to steal the thing. They come up against various dangers and complications, and there's all sorts of inter-crew. The heist crew have
Mhm.
their own kind of drama going on in between them. Who can you trust? Who's betrayed us? That sort of stuff. It's all there. Then I think there's like there is a good amount of stuff here for you. I don't think anyone will watch this and say, it was a bad show.
Yeah.
But I think there is a degree between how hooked you will be on this show and how well received you will it will be for you.
I looked it up on IMDb because I hadn't heard of it before, and the featured reviews title is "Pretty Childish LARP as a Cartoon." So
Childish love.
yeah. All right.
I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
yeah, I absolutely wouldn't say they're wrong. But I liked this more. I liked this more than I was worried I wouldn't. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. No, I get it. I think that we've mentioned this so many times on this podcast, but it bears repeating that just because something isn't like stellar good, like
Mm,
stellar amazing, doesn't mean it isn't good, right? And I think that sometimes it can be that like if it's not The Last of Us, if it's not Cyberpunk Edge Runners, if it's not Severance, if it's not like something that you're going to be thinking about for years afterwards, then it's not worth going for. And actually, that's not true. Like a lot of things are just pretty good. You know, and sometimes those are the things you'll be thinking about later because they'll just have hit you in a certain way.
yeah.
I don't think this sounds like it's like a heartless sort of cash in. It sounds like it's got its own things it wants to do. It just isn't necessarily a like super great adaptation.
It's interesting as well because it it backs itself by presenting a scenario for a second season. So it's not a one and done. They hope to tell more of a story going
Right.
on. And if they do that, I will watch it eventually. Maybe not, it won't be
Maybe
a high
not.
priority watch for me, but it will be something that I think Mary and I will be happy to sit down and watch as we eat our lunch or, in the evenings before we go to bed, that sort of thing. It's a very comfortable show.
All right, we'll move on. Just before we do, there's just something I found funny about part of what you're talking about, and it's just the way you worded it. But you said that the two LGBT characters in it were a reference to the sort of like positive view the game had on LGBT people, as opposed to a reference to gay people in real life.
But there's never been a gay relationship in real life. You and I
It
both know
only
that. But in the
exists in
game,
the
there are
Dragon
gay
Age world,
relationships.
yeah.
Yeah, in the fantasy world, there are gay relationships, and it's really nice that they brought that into the TV show. What can I say? Um, no, I just meant in the sense of
Yeah.
there are a lot of games out there that sometimes they let you have relationships that you can choose, but they don't let you pick queer romances at all. And if those shows were adapted, they probably wouldn't have a good representation of queer romances either, just
Hmm.
because the media they're drawing from doesn't. I think this show did a really good job
Unless you're The
of,
Last of Us. In
and that's
which
who The
case,
Last of Us.
well, those romances were in it anyway. But yeah,
And even though I know what you're referring to, I haven't watched it yet, but I know everyone's loving episode 3 for that
mm.
reason.
Or hating it,
Um,
depending on how much of a bigot you are.
I guess there is that as well. Oh dear. All right, ask your question. Ask me the thing that you asked me.
All right. You are you're a lad. You're in the Dragon Age world. I know very little about the Dragon Age world, so this is going to be tough.
Really?
Um, you're a lad. You're hanging out in the Dragon Age world. You got some gay friends because that's allowed in this world, and you're hanging out on a dragon heist. You're a warrior. So you fight like a warrior, and some of your friends are mages too. Um, and you're going
Yeah.
on your heist,
Mhm.
and you meet the dragon of whom the age is named after, and he's holding a one sentence review of the show Dragon Age Absolution, and you deftly steal it from his giant claws. But then he wakes up, and it's the scene from the Hobbit, but not that because we're dragon aging. But then anyway, you get out and you read the review, and it says,
It says, it says, a lovingly crafted adaptation.
"Nice, nice." All right, well, that was don't go into improv, Jamie says chat. Well, there we go. I thought that was fine. I think I'm always aware that whenever I do those things, they like ramp up in speed, and then I just suddenly stop and ask
Yep,
you, and
yep.
you always look so shocked.
Because it has to stop eventually.
All right, well, that was Dragon Age Absolution. Before we move on to games, there's a couple of other little bits we're going to talk about. I watched the first 2 episodes of The Last of Us TV show, as you know, because we've mentioned it in every other review up until that point so far. And yeah, the first episode's pretty great. The first episode is like an hour and a half. Like it's a full movie, and then they do that sort of HBO thing of things being an hour but actually often more than an hour kind of thing. So it's hard to find the time to sit down and watch it, but we hope to. I think that earlier I was mentioning that I think it might be fine to review next month because I don't think they're going to do anything particularly shocking. I don't mean that there's not going to be like important character deaths or stuff like that, but I think we're in a climate of, a post Game of Thrones climate where, major sort of left turn events are common, right? We understand that that's the kind of thing, and I don't think that would be a selling point on a TV show so much. But what I think it is doing really well, and I think what it would be interesting to talk about is the way that it adapts a beloved story and the way that it adapts a video game, because they are historically really tough to adapt, taking things that are normally very gameplay focused and ripping all the gameplay out of them, um, and how it's converted that to a TV show. And I think it's doing a really good job of it so far. I think that you can see the elements of the game in it, like where the gameplay would be, but not in a way that feels like they're going, hey, remember video games, but rather that it just works. It just fits the situations they want to set up. And there are shocking moments in it, but they're handled really well. And they've really sort of found the nuance and depth in the characters in it. I assume you're going to end up watching it, I imagine.
I'm gonna end up watching it. Jamie, have you played The Last of Us?
No, I haven't played The Last of Us, no,
Okay.
because it doesn't come out on PC until like this month, I think.
Interesting.
But I
Okay.
know bits and
I
bobs.
Part of me asks this because one of them, like any good video game, big memorable moments are often near towards the end if it's got a good ending.
Hmm.
Last of Us ending is legendary.
Hmm.
And it's legendary, and I mean not like, oh yeah, that was a good last boss fight. I mean the very last line before the screen goes black to credits is impactful.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like a little bit of me is like really, really wants to see what the show does.
Well, bear in mind that supposedly the first game is going to be over 2 seasons. So that line won't
Interest,
be at the end of this season.
interesting. That's also very interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
In any case, I am going to try and watch it, and I would like to watch it before you review it. So if you're going to review it next month, I'll make an effort to watch it before next month. And
cool.
if we do it, end up doing it in April, then I will have definitely watched all of it by then.
Cool.
I
Yeah,
look forward to us.
Laura's really enjoying it, so we will be pushing through it.
I really look forward to us talking about it. And even though I will try not to sit there and just compare to the game. The game is very cinematic.
Mm,
It's one of the most prestige, when people talk about prestige video games,
yeah.
The Last of Us is the golden standard.
Well, I think that would be the interesting thing of me reviewing it then, because I can talk about it from the point of view of someone who just knows the TV show, and then we can discuss how it matches up to its progenitor.
I see what you're trying to do. I see what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I've claimed this one already. This is
Yeah.
this is me planting a flag.
All right. Well,
Um,
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
all right. Also, you've watched a show called Summertime Rendering, which
So
sort of sounds like my job.
Summertime rendering. Yeah, you lie on a beach and just watch the percentage bar go up slowly on a digital screen. Okay, summertime rendering it's an anime on Disney Plus that I didn't know about until like 2 weeks ago, and it's a finished season. It came out, it finished earlier this year or the end of last year. And I heard good stuff about it, and I was just a bit like, "Oh, why haven't I heard of this?" Probably because it's on Disney Plus. Okay, let's give it a go. It's really good. It's really good. It's disregard the fact that it's an anime. It's got one of those plots that really doesn't rely on it being animated. It just happens to be that. Summertime rendering is like a murder mystery where a boy has sort of he used to live on an island with a small community, and then he goes away for 2 years, and then at the beginning of the show, he's on his way back to the island to attend the funeral of his foster sister. He was adopted into a family, and one of the daughters of that family has died, and it becomes a sort of like eerie murder mystery show where the death, everyone's saying it was from natural causes, but there are clearly indicators that it wasn't. People are saying strange things about the island. Something is going on. There seems to be a strange phenomenon sort of affecting people. And over time, not to say too much about what happens, but it layers up the mystery bit by bit so that every time you get a question answered, new, more interesting questions kind of arise. And it's just been kind of like really good. I think it's an original anime in that it's not adapting a manga. And it's just very high quality. It's just everything it's delivered so far has been just really quite spectacular. It's got a great plot, and I think that's where its strength is. The fact that it's animated means that it's able to portray those supernatural elements like just very naturally because it's part of its genre to do that, part of its media to do that. And yeah, Mary and I are really enjoying it. We're pushing through it. It could be a show that I review. It's a hard show to review in depth because that means I have to talk about the mystery element in more
Mm.
detail. I think a lot of that mystery gets set up really well at the end of the first episode, and hopefully that's just enough of a hook there. If you like a good mystery, if you like a good kind of supernatural kind of like thriller thing going on, and more importantly, if you can stomach a bit of anime, go on Disney Plus and watch Summertime
If you
Rendering.
can stomach it.
If you can stomach it, because I know some of you out there, you're all vomiting your guts out
I
right now
watch
because I mentioned the word.
I watch one anime a year, and
And it's the one I make you
it's the
watch.
one you make me watch for the award show. All right, we're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we'll be talking about video games. There's Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered on the docket, as well as Hi-Fi Rush. We're also going to be talking about movies, 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri, as well as Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And then we'll be talking about our random movie this month, which is Vermist, or Missing Permin.
Permins.
Missing Persons Unit. Missing Persons Unit. Although I think Vermis just means missing. I think that's what I
I
got from it.
I don't know. I was annoyed that Netflix shows you one title, but it has another title, and if you search the other title, it still comes up. Y- y- y-
You're annoyed that it's easier for you to find it.
I'm annoyed
You
that it
want
has
it to
two
be
titles.
buried deeper.
I'm annoyed that it has two
It
titles.
doesn't have 2 titles. It has an English title and a Belgian title.
It has a
Because
Belgium title, and then it has an English title where they added two extra words on.
okay, all right, fine.
Yeah.
Um, you grumpy boy. All right, we'll take a brief break. We'll be back in a moment. See you in a bit. Cool. All right, that's the break for the audio podcast. Hello, everybody. I like Koto. Disregard the fact that it's an anime. Ah, yes, the disclaimer Jonas must give at the start of every human conversation.
So good to see you today, Jamie. Now, disregarding that it's an anime, how are you?
Thank you for the raid, Andrew Inderil. And thank you for the raid, Sylvan. Sylvie the bunny.
Yeah, we got
Welcome
mega
in.
rated. Sylvie, I like your 3D rig, by the way. You may not have known it, but I was watching your stream.
I didn't realize Sylvan was streaming again.
Yeah, Sylvie's been streaming a Pokemon. I think you've been playing Pokemon Leaf Green, Fire Red,
Leaf Green, yeah.
but with a mod that lets them fuse the Pokemon together to make weird, fucked up amalgamation Pokemon, and then you get to play the game with the fucked up amalgamation Pokemon.
Thank you for reminding me, Koto. Yeah, I need to ask Janice about stuff. All right, we'll take a brief break, and then we'll be back in like 10 minutes. So go grab yourself a drink or all that jazz. We'll be back in a mo. Oh, it's way sourer than I remember. Oh my god.
You're...
I'm the Great Destroyer.
Porridge Junction.
Porridge Dungeon. Porridge Dungeon build robot. I think Maddie's having a breakdown and she's supposed to be in charge of that.
I don't want excuses.
Jazz
The lettuce and the cheese on this one. Cheese on this one.
Stop pressing the goddamn button! Stop rotating the fucking thing! It's me all along. Oh no, they go by themselves! Yes, and I'll do it again. Oh my god! Look at it! Look at this slide!
Slide to that.
Look at these swings! Look at these swings! Oh my god. Oh. Oh god, it's been so long. I forgot how awful they were. Looks like something out of The Walking Dead.
Do you believe in apples, Miss Turner? You better, because you're in one.
I do. I just kind of slip inside you like a warm kitten.
And this is Fairy. He's never hit a man, but he likes to watch. And oh, sorry. Oh my god.
He does not look healthy.
He looks really ill. I need them. They're my medication.
Are you sure you're not having a stroke?
I want to blackmail Hitler because I think there's money in it. Oh shit! No, don't keep attacking the dog. Oh no, the dogs are fighting.
Yeah.
Beth, your dog killed Luke's dog.
Killed my dog?
Oh!
Just about to say.
Oh my god! Oh my god! All this complaining, God, it's getting in the way of doing actual work. Ah! There's that Dory twin. Oh fuck! Jesus Christ! That is way worse than the last time. Is that we all share the nuts. So if Stu takes an executive decision to nut all over these birds in the cave, then that's half our nuts gone. I'm doing everything I can to lose all responsibility through incompetence.
Now I understand why Captain Puss was the way he was.
Again, democracy has failed.
Annoyed. Gay and annoyed.
He's settled in front of me. He sat down.
Oh, happiness, but the tale of maybe not happiness.
Your mouse pad is so hairy.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, this is Civ 4.
Oh.
Wait, what? Oh my god, it is! Oh my. Oh. Man, he's just been playing Sim 4 this
I'm
whole
beyond
time.
useless.
It is now.
TikTok, it's 4 o'clock.
Oh my god!
Oh fuck! Oh god damn it! Oh Jesus Christ!
I teach maths.
There we go. Oh. Oh god!
Wow! Wow!
It was pathetic. She was making these gurgling sounds.
I'm a shower pisser, but I will not associate with the shower poopers.
Okay.
Goodbye, random forest woman.
I guess we'll never know.
Goodbye. Don't want to worry anyone, but we don't have a lot of wood. I saw wood. I saw wood. I've got the wood. I've got wood. I've got some wood.
I died.
Look at me cycling away. Here I go. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. So it's here, right? Now we're in a very menacing room full of gas canisters and blood. How delightful. Oops. Oh. Oh no. Oh, that's not good. Oh. Oh shit. Fucking hell. Oh my god. Every time. So we're dead man's fingering her, right?
Jesus. Oh
Fine.
shit, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
That's not. I didn't mean it to sound like that when I said it. You performed an act of terrorism outside of our house.
I know you didn't, but it still was said.
No, 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 no! Oh, that was so close. I'll always be thinking about Rodney. I've
Okay.
no idea. No, Kate's dead.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is such a dramatic storyline.
Police brutality.
Wow.
What? What? The spirits must be cleansed. Someone eating at their station?
No.
No.
Wildlife in this game is mental.
Yeah. They came right at me.
Back to the fucking beginning.
Oh,
happened again.
Keep on trying.
Should we exchange insurances now?
No,
okay,
guys,
bye.
guys. I've
All
got
right.
a feeling they don't have insurance.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Problem solved. Oh, her. Okay. Oh! Oh!
You got punched. Nope. You literally punched her. Oh my.
Package.
What happened if they touch?
Ghostbusters?
Oh, there's another dude in me. In me.
When it said 35C there, and I was like, 35 Celsius? That's fucking warm.
No! No! No!
Can you see the light?
No! all the rooms are 35 Celsius. Why? Just for science.
I'm offering my next.
You can.
Someone?
Are you gonna fire him out the cannon?
Oh,
Oh my god! The sword presents a secondary danger. Oh! Oh no!
Oh
So long, friend!
Why would that be a selling point?
It's
Who walks in there?
exclusively to lizard people.
I'm afraid so, man.
Extremely
Mind if we come in?
content.
I will not let you through. Detain. We fucking got it. Gulag!
You done fucked up, my friend.
Gonna get gulag and death thanks to me. No, just get permit. It's fine. Detain. Off to gulag. Now that man is going to gulag. Aha. Wrong. What do you have to say for yourself, you son of a bitch? Detain. To the gulag with you. Got any bombs? Well, that looks like a weapon to me. We have made a mistake coming in here. Is it so obvious? Yes. To the gulag, my friend. They don't look the same. Detain! Female? Female? Interrogate! Are you a woman? Please let me through. In the gulag! Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome back. Yes, the person I needed to ask Jonas about was Nicki Minaj.
Oh, I can't believe you said it!
But she doesn't like her name being said in public. She's famously shy.
Which is why we just refer to her as Mickey Nimaj.
Mickey Minaj.
Mickey Mimage.
Old Mickey Minaj. Or as she's known Mickey Two Bricks.
Mickey Ginham.
Mickey
Mickey
Ginham.
Jiman.
Mickey Jim.
Mickey Jumanji.
Right, should we do a podcast?
Mate, we've been doing a podcast the whole time. Get with the program.
That meme. Are we going to do the podcast?
Always has
It
been.
always has been. All right. Okay. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. It's the game section, and this month I'm going first, as is indicated by the fact that I also went first in the TV section. And this month I'm talking about, again, I briefly mentioned last month, but now I've had the chance to fully go through and finish it. I'm talking about Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. This is a relatively old game, as is indicated by the fact that Jonas talked about it a while back, but there is now a PC version of it, because Sony takes fucking years to release their games on PC. But I'm glad they do. Because this one's a great one, as was Horizon. So in this one, you play Peter Parker, some way into his life as Spider-Man, dealing with the various supervillains that New York regularly faces. And the game opens up on the lead up to taking down Wilson Fisk, and in doing so, releasing a dreadful new wave of crime on the city that he was holding at bay. The headline feature of Spider-Man is always the web swinging. So we'll discuss that first. Web swinging for Spider-Man is such a massive problem to solve. It's absolutely vital for it to feel like Spider-Man, and yet it seems incredibly difficult to get right, balancing realism with speed and maneuverability. But this game absolutely nails it. Swinging is an absolute joy, to the point where I almost never use the fast travel system in the game. It's fluid and it's easy, and yet it's nuanced. It helps to build a system of movement that flows into every part of the game. And if there's one word to describe this game, I think it's flow. Missions feel like part of the open world, with short cutscene inductions and then rapidly getting you into the action. The movement and combat skills that you develop work equally well everywhere, meaning there's no break in game feel between a random encounter in an alleyway and a boss fight with Vulture. You always, wherever you are, feel like Spider-Man. This is a game that respects your time. Every mission is short but punchy feeling, like the best bits of any superhero movie, but never locking you into 30-minute cutscenes to make that happen. You feel like you're the one doing everything, not being dragged through the story. That's not to say that the storyline isn't good, though I wouldn't expect a truly life-changing experience with it. I would say if it's let down at all by anything, it's the segments in which you're tasked as playing with as Miles or MJ. The real joy in this game is the system of movement they've created for Spidey himself, that feeling that you are Spider-Man, and taking that away feels disappointing. Yeah, that's not to say that they don't come up with a lot of interesting ways for Miles and MJ to play, but they're just a lot less interesting than swinging between buildings. Spider-Man, I think, is an excellent example of how to do open world actions games without being a grind. It feels expansive and full featured, but it doesn't ever waste your time. And it's an incredibly tight and enjoyable experience. Jonas, you have played this. You talked about it on the podcast before, but now we're properly reviewing it. So, how did you feel about it when you played through it?
Yeah, I think Spider-Man is one of those rare examples of a game that truly manages to provide that kind of triple A experience. In that, it's got like triple A visuals and graphics. Its engine is like absolutely pushing the technology to render a a near, it's not to scale, right? But Jesus Christ, that feels like a very real New York to be swinging through. It brings a very real world to life. There's a lot of depth to it in the sense that like NPC AI is simple, but Jesus Christ, it's not broken. People walk around the city, people react to what you're doing, people are going about their days, drinking coffees, sitting on benches, going to work. Like the world is quite alive around Spider-Man. It really does, triple A absolutely defines a lot of the sort of mechanical features of this game, but it just manages to do it all just right. Anything that it doesn't want to do, anything that doesn't enhance the game's experience, anything that doesn't enhance the fable of being Spider-Man or Peter Parker in the Spider-Man suit, isn't there. Like even when it does the collectibles, right? The collectibles are actually personal effects of Peter Parker's that he has a personal attachment to every single one. And the idea is that at some point in his life, he's accidentally hidden this thing, like to like get into costume, and he's forgotten that he left it there. They just find really like just small ways to provide excuses for why something is in the game, and if it isn't there, it's because it wouldn't have made the game better.
But even in that collectible thing, like there's the thematic side of it, but there's also the gameplay side of it. There's not that many of them, and you're told where they are as soon as you unlock like the ability to do the towers that give you the map, right? So you are given a somewhat out of your way, but not particularly out of your way task that involves using the best mechanic of the game more. And
Yeah.
you go, great. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's just enough that you feel like you're achieving something, but you also get to do it in a fun way.
And it's another way, right, for the developers to kind of celebrate the environment that they've made. Like that's generally why collectibles are in a lot of these games, because the main story narrative has no excuse to make you explore 100% of the map. Like it's, a map is too detailed or too grand, or just simply the story can't find a reason enough for you to go everywhere in a map. So you provide optional objectives, but if the optional objective is obtuse or time draining, or just really feels like a slog, doesn't feel rewarding whatsoever. And yeah, Spider-Man just finds, I mean, for one, the whole point of Spider-Man is swings around on a web, just getting from A to B, going around the city, but never, there is a fast travel system in that game. Sure, you'll use it if you need to get from the very north side to the very south side of the city. But if you need to go from like north side to Central Park, you'll swing it. It's right there. Like,
Even then I didn't really use it, and I think it was because I really got the feeling, and it was borne out by the end of playing the game, that it was never going to make me do something that was tediously long, right? So, and because I really enjoyed the swinging, it was like, well, I can take the extra 10 minutes it takes to swing from one end to the map to the other because I really enjoy it. I'll come across little like crimes I can solve and stuff like that, and I'm not playing a 300-hour experience where every 10 minutes is pushing this further and further and further on. I know that this is going to be a game that doesn't I think by the time it ended, I was like, yeah, that's bang on where I wanted it to end. I'd be interested to know, and like we're never going to know this, but how much like testing they did on how many enemy bases they should have in the map, or how many crimes there should be in each area, because every single one of those things, every single one of those optional objectives felt like it was just before it was going to start trying my patience.
Yeah. It's always like, oh, there's 2 nearby. I feel like I could do 2. That's pretty fun. And they're not very different, but they're just different enough, right? Like one's at the top of a construction site, one is like, I don't know, in a at the top of a penthouse suite that is like heavily guarded by snipers, that sort of thing. Where it's like, oh, these are mechanically different fortifications that I'm dealing with. So I'm going to use slightly different tactics. And the fact that, it's such a minor thing, right? But because it's an open world game, a bad open world game would make you stand in a specific place to trigger the next event. Spider-Man basically just says, oh, are you vaguely in a 50-meter sphere of the thing that comes next? Not only are we not going to transition you into a pointless cutscene, we're just going to have the characters start saying the dialogue. Like they're just
just
Spider-Man says, that's the building where the thing happens. I have to remember, like when I go inside, this is going to happen. Like he kind of, thinks aloud the next step that you, the player, will take to
Or
proceed the
phone
story.
someone or something like that. Yeah.
And we haven't talked about the best thing in the game. Sorry, Jamie. We need to talk about it. He's a menace, right?
Oh.
Spider-Man's a menace, and we know that Spider-Man's a menace because we get to listen to the J. Jonah Jameson podcast.
Yeah.
throughout
The J.
game.
Jonah Jameson podcast is good. I
It's
think
really good.
that there's a lot of really nice I wouldn't say that the writing's stellar. I wouldn't say that it's something that's going to live with you forever, but it is enjoyable, and I think that's a really important thing. Like you're going to spend all this time with this thing. You're going to hear these, J. Jonah Jameson radio broadcasts or phone calls with the police or MJ or whatever, and everything is just short enough and just witty enough and just funny enough that it feels like a little extra spice rather than a tedious thing. The J. Jonah Jameson broadcasts are very funny and they're relevant about the thing, and they're also nice and short. So you get the gag, and then you can carry on playing the game as you go. And I think that's like I think they really nailed it on the tone of those things. There's little hints towards like fun ideas and themes without this becoming a game that's really sort of bogged down in stuff. This idea that like the only people who are ever really nice to him outside of like MJ and Miles are like the villains, right? like Tombstone is like genuinely respectful of him and things like that. Like Black Cat's really nice to him a lot of the time. Like
Spider-Man's one of those ones, isn't it, where the villains, the villains alone are very boring. Spider-Man alone is like fine, but it's often the pairing of Spider-Man and his villains that like is where a lot of the heart of Spider-Man is, right? Because Spider-Man tends to recognize the humanity in his villains. Like he tends to recognize that before they put on that suit, or before they got that weird power, or before they got that, like that weaponry or whatever, that they were a member of the city, that they had a job, that they had a place in the community. And he always tries to talk to that humanity. He always tries to say, listen, why are you doing this for the money? You could get a decent job with your skills. You could go do that. You could go legit. Why aren't you going legit? And yeah, I think the game does a good job of kind of just being like, it's a little showcase of those relationships in video game format.
Yeah, I think that they have a really good idea of who the character is, but the story isn't about that. Right, the story is just a classic, like beat 'em up, like like classic superhero story. But because they have a really good idea of who the character is, every glimmer of those moments feels like an earned, like built kind of thing. These characters feel like they have history in the world. It's really good that they set this a few years into him being Spider-Man, so he feels grounded in the world and like he has history with all these people. It doesn't need to be a game about the hardships of being Spider-Man or how he overcomes some personal struggle. You get that from just the way that he interacts with his environment and the people around him. I think it's clever. I think it's definitely popcorn, and it's definitely like easy to play. Like it's definitely easy to love. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have depth to it. That things haven't been thought about. And I think actually a lot has been thought about to bring it to this point of ease.
Just a real quick thought, because I think this is a really relevant part of the video game that we've just not discussed at all. Combat, how did that feel for you? How did you enjoy that element?
Yeah, I quite like the combat. I think that there was a lot of interesting things. Like as with all of these kind of games, there's a lot more to the combat than you ever use. Like you end up finding a way to fight that suits the way you play. But I think that Spider-Man does a good job of giving you these little optional objectives to say, maybe do this, maybe use the web throw, maybe use a gadget here or there or whatever. I think that what I found very interesting about it is that because I was, collecting as many crime tokens and things as possible, so I was doing all the little optional objectives. Every fight would be turn up, slowly sort of dance around people, trying to figure out a way to like stick them to a wall or hit them with a manhole cover or whatever was my objective. And as soon as the objectives were all done, like
Wail on them.
Spider Bros everywhere, just dead. And but it was never not fun. I think you had a bit of a puzzle, and then you got the sort of, you've completed the puzzle, you get to go wild, just fucking do it kind of thing. That's quite satisfying, and there wasn't enough of it to feel like I was just being bogged down by having to meet these arbitrary objectives, and there wasn't so much of it that I was feeling like I was just punching my way through nothing. Like when it got easy, it ended.
Yeah. And yeah, those easier fights are just like, right, I have to stop a crime. How many bad guys are there? 5 bad guys. Cool, done. And it never just kind of unnecessarily decides to triple the enemy number for the sake of slowing you down a bit or making a fight feel harder.
Yeah,
Because a fight is rarely harder because of how many people there are. It's mostly harder because they've thrown like genuinely a couple of like big muscle bruises at you, a couple of people with people with shields or tasers or guns. Like, it's the enemy types and the variety of enemy types that means that you have to be defensive in different ways. But then that gives you a priority list, right? Like, you start to figure out that certain enemies need to be taken out faster so that the rest of the combat can go the way you want it to go. And once you learn that, again, you feel like you're playing like Spider-Man. That guy's got a rocket launcher. Press this button, pull the rocket launcher out of his hands. He's been disarmed, and kind of doing that with each enemy one by one. And, when you do it well, yeah, you absolutely feel like you're just making chump change of these well-armed, well-prepared, absolutely dangerous enemies that to Spider-Man, they're just playthings. And I think that's really fun.
The last thing I'll say before we have to move on, but the only time that it deviates from that feeling of like you sort of mastering it is the Taskmaster challenges, because the game feels like it has quite a smooth curve of like you're always ahead of the difficulty curve, and even when it starts to get more difficulty at the end, it's about you sort of gaining mastery to feel like Spider-Man. And then it brings in these Taskmaster challenges, and it goes, if you want gold, you're going to be sweating through your controller. You're going to be like the first time I did one and I got a bronze, and I thought I'd done pretty well, and I got a bronze, and I was like, oh, okay. I did it again, and I was like really like fucking like cracking my controller in my hands. It's like silver. It's like, what do you even have to do to finish this on gold kind of thing?
Yeah.
That felt weirdly hard for the tone of the rest of the game, but because it was a side thing, it was like, it felt to me like, okay, fine, like, I don't have to get all the golds on this. I see why this is here, but it was very different to the rest of it.
It's crazy that they got Greg Davies and little Alex Horn to come on to Spider-Man set in New York and host their own game show.
I think Greg Davies should play the next Taskmaster if they ever put him into another Spider-Man.
That'd be very funny.
Yeah, and he'll do all his own stunts. I think it'd be great.
I look forward to it. Okay, Jamie.
Yep.
You are, of course, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Finally.
We've known it for a long time, but let's face it, you're there now. You're Spider-Man. You're swinging around the city of London, doing what you do, taking out criminals, and you take out the greatest criminal in all of London, Boris Johnson, and you put him away. And by putting away Boris Johnson, oh no, a whole new wave of let's just call them political criminals,
Russian oligarchs.
Sure. Are let loose throughout the city, and in doing so, media label you a menace. But don't worry, because you are of course welcomed to give a superhero press conference. And in your superhero press conference, you're allowed to give a one-line summary of the game, Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, as an apology, as a way to win back public favor. What do you say?
The best Spider-Man game so far.
I think it's hilarious that you've said that because you've not
'Cause
played Miles Morales.
I know.
Interesting.
I
But
know.
but I
I'm
I
saying it's the
won't
best Spider-Man game so far that I've played.
that you've played. I don't dispute it. I think I won't go on and talk about Miles Morales now.
Yeah.
But if you enjoyed Spider-Man, I think just go back to it in like 6 months. Like if it's available on PC, I think pick it
Well,
up,
I
but
still have
give
the
yourself a
DLC to do, but I got distracted by
oh.
Hitman Freelancer,
Oh. Okay, fair enough.
and I've probably got
Well,
to
it
play
is
another
there.
game before next month's podcast because that's how this all works.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. Now we're going to move on to Jonas's review of the month, which is a significantly more contemporary game. Jonas, what are you reviewing this month?
I'm reviewing Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is a game developed by Tango Gameworks, who previously made Ghostwire Tokyo. They made The Evil Within 1 and 2, which, if you hadn't quite realized, they're like horror games. Hi-Fi Rush, nothing like it. Hi-Fi Rush is I use the phrase stealth dropped video game, which basically means they didn't announce it and then it just came out. It's a stealth dropped video game that got released on January 25th, and I think to great success. It's a rhythm action platform adventure game in which almost every action you perform in the game occurs in time to the music. The story is about a boy called Chai. Chai gets a robot arm and suddenly finds that all of his movements happen in sync to music. He is labeled as a defect and must fight his way through scores of robot opponents and take down an evil corporation along the way. I think Hi-Fi Rush is a rare gem of a video game. The writing and direction is absolutely spot on. It's full of music, movie, and video game, even anime references to make you smile. The mechanic of everything moves to the beat is used so holistically with the rest of the game systems that you can't help but get drawn into that rhythm. Every character is iconic and expressive. Whether they're ally or foe, I think you'll remember them fondly. I think the biggest risk that this game has taken is it's essentially asking every player that plays it to be confident about their ability to stay on the beat. Combat involves blending together, light attacks, heavy attacks, parries, support moves, dodges. But every one of those actions that you do absolutely happens in time to the music. And what the gameplay does is it rewards you if you can make your inputs in time to the music as well. So, the game tries to basically control your temptation to just spam dodge whenever you see an attack incoming, and discourages kind of button mashing in combat. So rather than going dodge, 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 and just hoping for the best, you kind of press, in time to the music, dodge, 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 and you'll do 3 very well timed, very well executed dodges. And that kind of applies to everything. I think this is a mechanic that could absolutely put players off, especially if you're unconfident in your action kind of gameplay or your ability to kind of do rhythm games. But I think the developers of Hi-Fi Rush have really thought about that barrier. They've included difficulty levels that absolutely remove the emphasis from that rhythm. So the rhythm is still there and everything happens in rhythm, but you can essentially pull back the part of the game that asks you to be good at that. You can add additional HUD elements that show you precisely when the beat is coming so that you're not just relying on the sound. But, there are also a lot of other elements there that I think are all designed to help the player get to grips with this system, especially the fact that the game gives you plenty of opportunity to practice and train, to allow players that feel that the game might not be their thing, gives them the opportunity to see if the game can accommodate them in some way. And I think good accessibility options are worth highlighting in this game because you don't normally get those in Japanese developed video games. It's genuinely very rare. my main underlying statement for this game is that the game is fun. It shouldn't need to be said, but this is a game that just rewards the player from start to finish. Having a little cat robot sidekick that in the middle of a fight, the game will cut to you and the cat doing a little joyful, playful animation for 2 seconds and then rush you back into the combat. The stylish flair of your enemies, all of them having unique designs, some of them getting their own unique intros, the bosses that you fight all being like uniquely designed archetypes of their own with their own music. It's just incredible. The environment all bounces in time to the music. Trees kind of bounce up and down. Gears in the factories turn in time to the music. The entire HUD is pulsing in time to the music. You walk and run and click and jump all in time to the music. It just feels rewarding to be part of that kind of that interaction. And I think there's fantastic writing in there, especially the dialogue that paints this corporation that you're fighting as a capitalist nightmare. It feels very Bezos-esque. And the fact that this game has licensed songs from Nine Inch Nails, Black Keys, The Prodigy. Every detail of this game feels like it is infused with nothing but passion and love for video games. This is a game that came out with absolutely no hype and no marketing push before the day of its own release. And it has skyrocketed from absolute obscurity to one of my all-time favorites. I think this is truly a special game with a lot to offer. Jamie, did you see the trailer for this game when it came out? Did you see anyone posting about it on social media?
Yeah, I saw a lot of the hype about it. It's definitely something that, it's not the kind of thing that if it had sort of been promoted properly and, well, I don't want to say properly because it's clearly done well, but if it had been promoted ahead of time, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. But the sudden burst of interest that everyone had made me sort of look into it. It sounds really interesting, especially when you were talking about this idea of like fighting on the beat. And how like it tries to encourage you not to spam punch or to dodge just constantly, because there is a lot of things in Spider-Man and in Batman and in all of those kind of like sort of brawler puncher fighter game kind of things where they often do benefit you for hitting when an attack happens, like having a rhythm to the way that you fight. Spider-Man definitely does it with like building up additional power bar if you press the button like when you want to punch rather than just spam the button. But this game obviously makes it a mechanic, right? It makes it as part of the game. It makes it thematically part of the game. And as you're saying, that might put people off from it. Do you think that it feels like something exceptionally new? Or does the combat feel like? Does the combat have some kind of feeling of those other kind of sort of brawler games?
I think it feels new, and I think it feels new in the sense that it's not just you that attacks to the rhythm, right? It's that your enemies all attack on the rhythm. So, in Spider-Man or Batman or those types of games, you're rewarded for normally kind of like press square to punch, and then only press square to do your next punch at a particular time. And if you do that right, you'll do double damage, or you'll get double combo bonus. We'll give you a little special bonus. And so what that requires you to do is pay attention to your combo string, right? Like, to know to go punch, 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 punch sort of thing. But if you have to dodge bullets in between that, if you have to jump and swing, if you want to pull off a special attack, that's all completely off the beat. That's all improvised. That's all you just coming up with it on the fly and in the speed of combat. But in this game, it's like, imagine just sort of listening to just one of your favorite kind of like little drum intros to a song that you like. That's just got a simple 4/4 beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this entire game is just going. Every enemy is attacking you on one of those beats. 1, 2, 3, I'm being attacked. 1, 2, 3, I'm being shot. 1, 2, I need to jump in the air. What? And it gets you in this flow state that you described the Spider-Man flow state, and I think that's true for Spider-Man's rhythm. And then the flow state in this game is unique because I don't think any game has tried to build a flow state entirely to its own soundtrack in an action context. You know, rhythm games are rhythm games, action games are action games. And you're normally expected in an action game to put in very fast inputs. You know, like you're expected to be able to dodge, attack, jump, special attack, stun, all of this very quickly on the fly. Whereas Hi-Fi Rush just asks you to, can you do it on the beat? If you do it on the beat, then you basically get to do, it's basically like Spider-Man. You get to do your special attacks faster if you attack on the beat. And if you block on the beat, then your score is higher. And the score is basically just there to kind of say, you did this really well, well done. Completely optional.
How long are encounters usually? Because it feels like it might get quite tiring having to keep up that kind of thing.
Oh,
often.
they've definitely got down the sort of the cycle of the game really well. The combat loop, which is you walk into a room, 3 enemies appear, you beat up the 3 enemies, 5 more enemies appear, you beat up the 5 enemies, you now go do anywhere between 2 to 10 minutes of platforming. Then there's
Okay.
another fight, and then you do some platforming. Then
Is
there's a
the
fight.
platforming bound to the rhythm aspect of it?
Jumps and dashes are, yes. So there are parts of the game where there's moving platforms, and you can tell that the platform is, you get platforms that like the platform's there, the platform's not there.
Yeah.
You'll get those ones where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 platforms there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 platforms down. One.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the platforming is in time to the music. And as you're running through the level platforming, you're finding like little bits of the level that are just fun, right? Like you're smashing crates for coins. You're discovering hidden areas with life upgrades or special attack upgrades. You're sometimes not really solving puzzles, but you're sometimes calling in your teammates to do something that your character can't do, like shoot something that's far away or destroy a wall that you can't destroy. And they all come with their own little fun quirks. So the platforming is like platforming meets minigame and then a fight, and then a bit more minigame and then a fight, and then a bit more like maybe like a little bit of a maybe a little bit of like a sort of a set piece, like where you walk into a big lore dumping room that just looks and where people talk about the characters and you find out about the next boss you're going to fight. And I just think that the game really understood how to give you a balanced flow of everything. Like no combat section is too long. I think one of the best combat sections I got was quite long, but it was with the Prodigy. So it was like drum and bass techno, and it felt really good to be in that fight.
And does it you talked about boss fights. Does it feel like that it's particularly inventive in how it uses its mechanics, or do you sometimes feel like a boss fight significantly different, or are they just bigger normal fights?
Oh, they're half and half, right? You fight a big woman with big massive fists and she does wrestling moves. That's a one-on-one fight. It's a very kind of like it's a slower affair where you need to pay attention to her movements, block, and you need to make use of weaknesses in her attack chain. And then you fight someone later on who is a massive diva on stage, and half of her fight is just a full-on rhythm battle where you are trying to out jam each other, like you're trying to outperform each other to a stage. And she thinks she's got the audience on her side, but when you outplay her, you absolutely prove her wrong, and that becomes part of her undoing. They are all very like physically different as well. You've got a wrestling woman, you've got a guy that turns into a werewolf, you've got this lady I was just talking about basically develops wings and flies around and attacks you from above. There's one really good boss fight where you strictly should not attack the boss because you're trying to convince her to join your side. So it's purely defensive. It's all about dodging and blocking, and it is slow, but the rhythm is still there. Like you have to block, 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 dodge, 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 block, block, block. And you're just trying to wear her out. And it's just like, and
I like that.
music.
That's interesting. Yeah.
it was really fun. It was really fun. It was one of my favorite boss fights. And again, because the music's there and the dialogue is there and the dialogue is developing the story, you're invested. You're in the moment. It's never stale because you're always progressing towards the end of the fight. And it just always works. I think that's the really weird thing about Hi-Fi Rush is this is a game that made a really hit and miss horror game last year on the PlayStation 5. Ghostwire Tokyo was on PS5 and PC. They made The Evil Within. Evil Within 2 is genuinely a great horror game, but it's niche. It's a very niche AAA horror game. And then they just come out with this spectacular cell-shaded Jet Set Radio meets Futurama meets Devil May Cry meets Crypt of the Necrodancer video game, and it just delivers on every angle. Genuinely, really impressed.
Cool. All right. Well, you are a person in the distant future, and you have a mouth that syncs to the music. Uh, and it needs to give you need to fight people by giving reviews, and so you must use your music synced mouth to give a review to the beat. What is your one sentence review of Hi-Fi Rush?
I think Hi-Fi Rush is an unholy fusion that wows completely. Perfect rhythm.
Yeah, I like how you were counting the syllables, but not necessarily on the beat. All right.
It's fine because due to the accessibility options, I still would have been allowed to get to the next level.
Excellent. And that's what gaming's all about. All right, well, that was Hi-Fi Rush. Before we move on to movies section, we've also got you played Forspoken, which the only thing I know about this game is that people didn't like it when it came out. How do you feel about it?
Forspoken has a good game in there, but you got to dig deep, and you have to wade through a very unnecessary amount of exposition, a awfully gratingly like. Do you know what a bark is in a video game?
Bark?
A bark, yeah.
As in, like,
Barks. Barks are the terminology that they use in video games where it's like NPCs just say stuff in response to like inputs.
Right.
So in the Last of Us game or in any stealth game, you make a noise. In Hitman, you make a noise and the NPC responds by saying, "What was that? I think I heard something. I'm going to go
Right.
check it out." Those are
Yeah.
all barks. Your character has like infinite amount of barks because she talks to a piece of clothing that is sentient.
Right.
But their barks are triggered by like, do you start sprinting? They start talking about how tiring sprinting is. Do you see two enemies? They
Right.
decide to comment on the fact that there are enemies nearby. And she also does a bit of witty dialogue about how little she likes fighting. Is there a chest? They talk about how the chest has loot and the loot might not be useful. Do you jump? They talk about jumping. Do you look somewhere? They talk about looking. Everything you do has an unnecessarily unique and then eventually repetitive dialogue.
It's like someone drew up a matrix of all the possible interactions that could have a dialogue thing going, yeah, so if you just have a look through this, pick the ones that you want to add dialogue to, and the director's gone, all of them.
All of them.
Every
But
single one.
also, when the dialogue's been said, can you make sure that the game just says it 5 minutes later, please, in case the player doesn't remember that the character said that 5 minutes ago. And you know, the quality of the dialogue is also a bit grating. It's a bit Whedon-ish, you know, in that
Right,
it's
yeah.
like the characters are just unnecessarily smarmy with each other all the time.
This is the thing I heard that people were saying it's trying to be sort of like clever and like, you know, meta's the wrong word, but like you know, like self-aware.
If
And
it said 1/20th and I use that. If it said 5% of the optional dialogue that it chooses to say, I dare say it might be charming once in a while. But the fact is you run around a wasteland for 20 minutes and you hear 20 comments that are all filled with the same dry, smarmy, kind of nonplussed kind of personality, where the two characters are kind of constantly just kind of upping each other on how little they can give a shit.
Yeah.
And it's a bit painful. The good game is magical parkour, makes you feel kind of cool, like you float around and you run around and you shoot, and you generally can get around the environment quickly. And the magic that you fire, like third-person combat, but you fire the magic out rapid fire. Sometimes you're slashing an enemy with fire magic, you're slamming enemies in the face with stone magic, you're summoning like things to help you, and then you're doing a backflip, and then you're covering yourself in stones while you set a trap down on the ground, and then you're dodging a dragon by like parkouring in its face.
That
It's
sounds
cool.
pretty cool. Yeah, that sounds great.
The combat is cool when it works.
Yeah.
There are times where it's really messy and too floaty. Or you find that you're just shooting the same spell at an enemy for 5 minutes because for some reason they make the enemies hard to kill but not hard to fight. If that makes sense?
Yeah. It just feels like it's taking a long time.
It just feels like it's taking a long time. So there's a lot of really good concepts in there. Mary and I have been playing it because we kind of want to give it a fair shake. And I think by the end of the game, I will have had some really cool moments, but those cool moments last 5 minutes, and then I have to wait 3 hours for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's hard to justify, really hard to justify.
Yeah.
That's not even talking about the problems with its side quest development and its Ubisoft open mappy designiness, and the fact that the plot is quite dry and the
I mean, it comes back to the thing that's good about Spider-Man, which is a game that respects your time. Like sometimes more isn't better. There's a reason why Skyrim is good and big, is because you're not expected to play all of it. It doesn't cover the map in icons and say go get all these things. It just says you're going to have a story in this world that's going to be your story, and there's just going to be stuff everywhere. Ubisoft goes for the opposite end of the spectrum, which is here is 300 things, and we expect you to have done all of them by the end of the game. And I think that if you're going to go down that route, you need to be like Spider-Man. You need to go, here's 40 things, because we know that 41 things is too much. Right?
It really needs to scale down, and it like not
An
even
editor,
10%.
It needs to be sliced up.
Yeah. I hope this isn't the game I have to review in full next month, to be honest. But there is more to talk about with this game. It's a game that is worth discussion, but I don't think I'm going to bring it to the podcast to do that.
Okay, well, so you could talk about this other game you've apparently played called Your Only Move is Hustle.
Your Only Move is Hustle is a game that games come out on itch.io, right? And that's like where they're they haven't been published on a game store. Someone's kind of just made something small, so they go on itch.io, which is like, a little software hub for So this game came out on itch.io and it was called Yomi Hustle. Then another company said, yo, you can't use the word Yomi. We use the word Yomi in our game, even though it's a generic word for like demon. So they changed Yomi Hustle to Your Only Move is Hustle. That's why the name is so long now.
Yeah, because it's YOMI.
Yeah, exactly. And Yomi is a phrase used to kind of like the psychology of your opponent in a fight.
Right.
So like, is he going to throw a kick? Is he going to block? Is he going to jump? That whole battle is called Yomi. Anyways, that's not necessary. Your Only Move is Hustle is like a really it's a really, really clearly indie made game. Like one person has made this game. The characters look like stick figures drawn in paint. and it's a fighting game with 4 classes. So you can be a ninja, a cowboy, a robot, or a wizard. And the idea behind Your Only Move is Hustle, the idea behind Yomi Hustle is at the beginning of the game, I have 30 seconds to decide what I'm going to do. Am I going to jump? Am I going to attack? Is it going to be a sword slash? Is it going to be a dodge? Is it going to be a teleport? And I tell the game what I would like my character to start doing. And I get to see a little animated prediction of what it looks like when I do that action. And it shows me like the next 3 seconds of the future. So the next 3 seconds of my character attacking. And I can see your character getting hit by the attack. Meanwhile, on your side, you decide to jump backwards and shoot a rocket. You get to see how jumping backwards and shooting a rocket looks like in this timeline. We both lock in our actions, and the game moves forward half a second. We now have an opportunity to either change what we're doing, keep doing what we're doing, or like use up like energy to completely cancel what we're doing so that we can defend ourselves. And the whole game plays in like these half-second combat snippets.
That sounds
So
really interesting.
yeah, like I don't know. Imagine like a turn-based strategy game,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
rather than your turn being your character runs 5 squares, hits my character, runs back 3 squares and hides. It's I can see your character running towards me. I decide to I decide to shoot you. You see me raise my gun. You know that I'm going to shoot you. You cancel running at me, and instead you decide to like crouch behind a box. I see your character about to do the crouching animation before I've done the pulling trigger animation. I cancel the pulling trigger animation and I decide to go for grenade. And it's like it's a never-ending
Does it
battle.
play it out at full speed at the end?
After the fight, the whole fight in full speed.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And it's hype as it's really cool. I don't know how to play this game very well yet. I'm really new at it. So I played a whole game against myself today.
Yeah.
Where I chose the robot class and the cowboy class, but the cowboy is basically a samurai. Like it's a sword ninja with a
Right.
gun. It's
Sword boy.
swordsman with gun. And it was so cool watching like robot extends hand in the air, grabs my ninja, slams him down on the ground. The ninja recovers in midair, teleports behind the robot, pulls out his gun and fires. The robot jumps in the air, dodging the bullet, and does a slam down on the ninja. But the ninja then manages to do an up like slash that interrupts the robot and like leads to a 3-hit combo. It's just so cool. And the matches are quite long. Like if you play online, it asks you to do your turn in 30 seconds. But without that time limit, you spend so much time like looking through every single one of your options and looking at the predicted next 3 seconds and being like, "Ooh, if I do this, he's probably going to do this. So I'm going to make it look like I'm going to do that. But actually, I know I'm going to do something else next turn."
Is that going to end up being a game on season 3 of Head to Head?
Season 3 of Head to Head will absolutely have Yomi Hustle if we ever get there.
Yeah.
It's
we will,
really good. It's really good.
Well,
it's
genuinely,
on
it sounds
Steam.
interesting. I would be up for trying that.
It's on Steam for £4, I think. Like it's honestly, it's a pittance. And I think if you're a fighting game fan, or you're actually like you hate fighting games because of the real time stress they put you in, I think Yomi Hustle is a game worth just like at least getting eyes on to try and figure out if there's something there that you genuinely do love.
I think it's the best thing that all the best strategy games and tactical games have, which is that you're solving a puzzle set by someone else or by the thing, by the situation. Someone is setting the puzzle of, oh, I've seen them move their arm. What does that mean? How should I defend against that kind of thing? That sort of chess match feeling of it. Cool. Well, I'd be up for playing that at some point. And then I put down Aviary Attorney. It's a game that we just sort of on a whim picked for our Thursday stream game. I didn't think that it was going to be much. We literally just sort of picked it because it sounded funny. It was birds solving crimes. Genuinely, genuinely surprisingly good, and I would check it out. Basically, it is Phoenix Wright, but with birds that absolutely does not take itself seriously and has a genuinely great sense of humor. The opening case that you do, you are an attorney, an aviary attorney, and it does the Phoenix Wright thing of giving you an incredibly easy case where it walks you through everything that you're doing. You have the bit where you're going around collecting all the evidence. Then you have the bit in court where someone tells you their side of the thing, and you've got to pick out the inconsistencies in it. It is just Phoenix Wright with birds, but it knows that's what it is, and so it does a really good job of it.
Sure.
So yeah, if you're a Phoenix Wright fan, check it out. It's probably incredibly cheap. I think I got it in a humble bundle or something, so I don't really know how I ended up with it. But yeah.
Fair enough. I am a Phoenix Wright fan. I've still got a Phoenix Wright game kind of on the go at the moment. So,
well, we're probably going to play more of it on Thursday streams, so I'll let you know how it goes. But I think it's looking to be pretty fun.
Nice, cool.
Right. We've still got a whole section left to go, and I'm exhausted, and I have to get up early tomorrow to set up a Stardew mod pack. Can we delay filming the end of this? I know it's a pain, but we've got so much to go.
We can, for your sake, absolutely. Sorry, yeah, I think we've both been quite passionate about the stuff we've talked about, other than 90s.
I mean, we spent 40 minutes talking about Hitman.
No, we don't. Who cares? Who cares?
I mean, I don't mind, but it does mean that we're going to have to delay the end of filming to this.
Okay. Well, I guess you and I will figure out when to do that.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a Tuesday, and we'll just work it out as we go. Whatever works for both of us. All right, cool. Well, we'll stop our audio recordings there. I'll just stop mine now. Stop. Well, thank you for watching, everybody. Sorry you didn't get to see the end of it today, but hopefully we'll stream the end of it. If it becomes that the only way we can actually do it is off stream, then that's how we'll have to do it. But I think it's likely we'll be able to stream the end of it. And we'll do movies. There's only movies in the random Netflix movie thing to do anyway. But maybe even then, Laura's ill at the moment, so she wasn't able to do our random Netflix stuff. But maybe she'll be back up on her feet by that point, and then she can do it for us.
Fingers crossed.
Do you have anything you want to say? Like, are you doing any streaming the rest of the week?
I did stream most of Hi-Fi Rush, by the way. So if you're curious about that game, and you want to be led through it by me specifically, JTTG on Twitch. It's the last stream I did was the end of Hi-Fi Rush. I wouldn't worry too much about spoilers of this game. It's more like it's tone and set pieces, right? Like if you think you would like to discover those bosses and those set pieces by yourself, then maybe just go to my first stream of Hi-Fi Rush and just watch me play through the first level. You'll get an idea of what the game is. But if you want to see me really enjoying that game and really 100% losing myself to how good that game is, just watch the most recent stream. I go fucking crazy for how good that game is. And I didn't say this enough. Little Cat Robot Companion is the fucking best. 808 is my new favorite cat in any video game ever.
Even better than the Stray Cat.
Even better than this, way better than the Stray Cat.
Way better.
Yeah, I think it has to be said that the Stray Cat had relatively very little like personality, like personalized.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but 808
like push doors.
808 in between fights plays around with your scarf and jumps on your guitar and cleans itself and helps you fight enemies, and it turns into a little ball that floats around
in a litter tray.
It pulses and it poops in time to the music.
Poops in time to the music.
Brings in dead birds in time to the music. Nice. Yeah, 808 is a wonderful little cat, and there are loads of people who are saying this should be Xbox's new mascot, and honestly, I agree with them.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so if you're interested in Hi-Fi Rush, please do check out those streams. It's just oh god, Koto
thanks,
coming
Koto.
at me on fucking rude, Kato. Yeah, I don't know what I else. If I do stream anything else, it'll either be Yomi, Your Only Move is Hustle, or maybe Hitman. Now that I've completed a campaign, I think I'll just stream it for the hell of it, and I might just go more balls against the wall because I've got nothing to fucking
Balls
lose.
right up against the wall.
Balls against the wall.
Not
I've
to
got
the
nothing to
wall,
lose
against
except my
the wall.
guns.
Just resting them.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We're doing so tomorrow. We hopefully are starting our massively modded Stardew stream. I spent a big chunk of today setting up a big chunk of my free time today setting up a list of all the mods that we're going to use. And at the moment, I have how many mods are on here? 324 mods that could possibly make it into this mod pack, including the first 61 mods of my Stardew mod list are just framework mods that make other mods work. But there's a lot of interesting shit in here. I think there's probably not a mechanic in the game that goes untouched in some way. I found a mod earlier today where the NPCs in Stardew just have their own relationships. They don't wait for you anymore. They can go off and they can get married to other people.
That's good.
So you just have to. I've got a mod in there for Maddie, which is that you can marry multiple people, and there's another mod in there which is that you get bonuses based on the people you marry, and the two of those mods work together, so you can collect them all like Pokemon badges.
I didn't realize Maddie. I didn't realize Maddie was desperately looking for polyamorous representation.
Every time we play Stardew Valley, Maddie dates everyone on the map and then has a rabbit's foot so that they don't get angry at her. Every single time we play that game.
Is that what it takes to be like, is that the tip that playboys are missing?
Yeah.
If you want to be a playboy, have a rabbit's foot, and the ladies, they can't get mad. They can't get mad.
They can't get mad. And then Thursday we're playing Sea of Thieves because Beth isn't around. So we'll be doing a bit of Sea of Thieves and I think it's just me and Luke, but I'll see if we can get some more crew members.
With a sick person in my house, I might be free.
Cool. Well,
because we had a full week, but now we might not have any plans this week.
So you can make your mind up right up until the time when we stream, because we can't get a bigger boat once we started, but before we start, we can pick any size of boat. So
I would have to reinstall it, and honestly, that's actually the biggest barrier.
just reinstall it.
So,
just do it, and then you got it.
I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say.
Say yes. The boys are back in town Thursday. And yeah, Fairy said he might also join us for that, so that'd be fun. All right. Well, that's it.
All right.
That's everything. If you
imagine if we'd reviewed the movies in the amount of time it took for us to do this wrap up. Imagine if we imagine a world where we
wouldn't have done. We wouldn't have done.
No, we wouldn't.
If you're watching this VOD on YouTube, because now all the VODs go up on YouTube for all streams that don't involve Laura, there will eventually be, hopefully, a VOD for the end of this. And I will link it in the description on this video when that happens. So if it hasn't happened yet, there won't be a link there. And if it has, check the description for a link.
I also just want to use this opportunity to remind anyone watching the YouTube or the Twitch VOD that I don't know if it's we or me, really keen to try and market the audio version of the podcast a bit more, really trying to find ways to get that in front of new audiences. But it's just really hard to find like communities that like, oh, I might be interested in listening to a review about this thing, without also just entering an entire community of just video, movie, TV, and game fans that isn't already absolutely diluted and inundated with unwanted ads and unwanted kind of pushes of various media. But you know what the best marketing of a podcast is? It's word of mouth. It's word of mouth. So just a reminder that if you enjoy this and there are people around you who enjoy talking about media, maybe this is a good show for them. Maybe they would enjoy the podcast.
Send them your poddy.
Yeah, if they're struggling, or just be like, look, these two guys are really boring. You should just play them when you get to bed, and you'll fall
Yeah.
asleep.
I don't mind being a sleep aid.
I listen to this falling asleep. I love listening to this as a sleep aid.
I properly listen to it. I listen to it on my walks. That's how I know that there's sometimes you get bonus massive chunks of silence. You know.
You know that bit of the podcast where we talked about Redacted?
Yeah.
What if I leave that in?
Yeah.
What if I
Yeah.
miss that?
Yeah.
And I leave that in.
Yeah.
And we said, we were just so rude. We wished them horrible curses and hexes and death, and we
Nicki
insulted
Minaj is going to be so angry.
Why do you say Redacted's name so freely?
All right, we're gonna have to finish up here because you're right. We are reaching the point where we might as well just have finished it. Thank you for watching, everybody. We'll let you know when it's coming back, but otherwise, come back tomorrow for Tuesday for some Stardew modding. I think it's going to be fucking wild. I think it's going to be wild. Bye.
Bye.